I'm Jenny Kirk, and unusually happy today, but been having a good day, and I thought we'd revisit some of these 1000 greatest albums from the wall of vinyl behind me. And, well, let's kick off today, without further ado, with my pick of 6. And first up here, we've got an album which the group's probably not all that familiar to a lot of you, but if you heard some of the songs, you certainly would recognise them. And this is Death in Vegas and their album Scorpio Rising. Now, this is not their first album. In fact, it's certainly, at the very least, their second album, possibly even more than that. But a lot of the tracks on this album have been used in film and television. So whilst it may not be immediately familiar to you, have a listen to some of these tracks on YouTube or iTunes. Tracks like Leather, Girls, Hands Around My Throat, Scorpio Rising, Killing Smile, all of these tracks are ones that have been used in film and television. You probably go, oh yeah, I recognise that track. We've got wonderfully colourful artwork which reminisces a little bit Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon to me, probably the refraction prism effect off there, but wonderfully simple, very eye-catching. And on the back we've got this sort of almost satanic style collage. It's not actually satanic, but I think it's the colours that they use, but it does fit in with the slightly post-goth gothy image of the band. And we've got a lovely beautiful gatefold here. Again, we're just very indulgent because all we've got is like funny pictures and stuff. There's no real artwork or anything in there. It's a double album, and we do get quite a lot in here. We get some more pictures on the inner sleeves. And also we get a full listing of details about the track, all the boring copyright information, but certainly a great album, well worth a listen. And I'd say it's more of an underground sleeper hit insofar as you go, oh yeah, I recognise that track. You'll thank me because there'll be a track on there that you've been wondering what it is since way back when, and you keep forgetting to get your sniffer program on your iPhone that goes bing. I have listened to this tune and have deduced that it's something. The next album I've picked out is Madonna. Now, Madonna is an album who is very, very good at reinventing herself, a bit like David Bowie in that respect, and gone through many, many iterations and still manages to come out sounding fresh and original in a lot of her albums. And this was her 1998 offering, and it's called Ray of Light. Now, it's a double album, like some of the other albums that we've been reviewing, but it's not in a gatefold. So you get one big sleeve, and then you get your two inner sleeves. And they're quite papery. They're not thick card sleeves, quite papery sleeves, but we get some photographs on there and some information about the tracks, as well as a full lyric sheet on there as well. So really good, actually, because when you're a teenager, like I was when I bought this, it's really good to be able to learn the words and then sing along and pretend that you're Madonna. But very basic, yet eye-catching cover artwork. Reminds me a lot of Prodigy's Fat of the Land, which was out in a similar time. That kind of vibrant photography, where the foreground is very, very detailed, but the background is almost like blurred out. It's got some great tracks on here, like Drown World, Substitute for Love, Ray of Light, the title track, and Sky Fits Heaven. There was also some big, big singles like Frozen, a bit like the Disney film of the same name. It was the song that just kept on giving. And The Power of Goodbye was one of my favourites on there as well. A great album and well worth a listen to. Now, I always like to pick, every once in a while, an album that's a real blindside that very, very few people, I suspect, have heard of. Even more unusual than Death in Vegas, because they're signed to a major record label. This was an album that I picked up in Piccadilly Records in Manchester, and I sometimes have one of these wild, wacky moments, not so much now, but certainly when I was a teenager, I used to do it every week. I'd go in, pick out 10 albums I'd never heard of from the racks, listen to them all, and basically buy the one which I thought was, wow, that's actually the best album. Well, a couple of years ago, I did this in Piccadilly Records. I thought, come on, let's revisit the magic. And this was the album that won the toss. And it's called Prisoner by the Jezabels. Never heard of them. I actually for a while suspected there might have been something to do with Poppy and the Jezabels, but they're not. Absolutely nothing to do with that group. And it's they're an Australian group, but it's on Play It Again Sam, and again it's a label that I'm particularly heard from, very much more underground. And I couldn't even find much information on them on the internet. That's how underground this is. I am at the cutting edge of music here, hanging with the cool kids. It's a gatefold, but I've left it in the cellophane because I quite often do that, just to protect the sleeve, and because I'm not really too bothered about seeing the picture on the inside. I can see if I glance down there's words and there's a picture, but it could be anything. I'm not really too bothered. I'm sure somebody somewhere will post a picture of what the inside of the gatefold actually looks like. And then it's a double album, and again we've got the papery sleeves, and we've got I think they're lyrics from some of the songs, but it's not really, it doesn't really draw attention to what's going on in here. Yeah, lyrics to songs, I think, and that's it. No real information on the band either, unless that's stuck inside the gatefold, but when you peer down in there, there's not really a lot to see. But standout tracks from this: Prisoner and Endless Summer and Long Highway. Have a listen to this. It's very much a 4AD sound, that's to say. You know, remember the 4AD record label, they're still on the go. But stuff like Cocteau Twins, certainly a great album. It was a surprising find, but I didn't regret the money that I spent on it. Now we're going back on the rewind, and certainly far more mainstream. We've got here Heart and Little Queen. This was the first album that they released after separating from their manager. And as part of an F you to him, they wrote and recorded a track called Barracuda. And it's really their way of getting back at this manager who really was completely useless for them. And I do think that this story behind this was part of the inspiration for that bit of music and lyrics, where it says, what can be well, I'm paraphrasing here, but what could be the best way of exacting revenge is to write a song detailing about how crappy they were, and then releasing it as a single and having it go straight to #1. And that's pretty much what Heart did with Barracuda. Again, you'll recognise it from a lot of films. One that immediately springs to mind is Charlie's Angels, the first film. And it also was on the soundtrack of GTA San Andreas. PS2 keeps on giving, you know what I mean. And it's a great album, and the track actually does stand out quite a lot. It feels very different from some of the other tracks. That's not to say the other tracks are bad. It's just that really there's such an energy behind that. You can really hear how inspired and fired up they were when they wrote and recorded that track. We've also got Little Queen, was another single off this album, and also Kick It Out. And the sleeve artwork, we've got this sort of stage Romany gypsy type scene, and we've got the two sisters in the forefront and then the rest of the band members in the background. But it's actually very, very staged. You can tell by the fact that the grass is unruffled, and the fire, in inverted commas, is basically somebody's just hosed it down with a smoke machine and then run off before the guy took the picture. But it's a really good album, and certainly one of the best Heart albums. Now, moving a little bit more up to date, but not by much, we're here with Belinda Carlisle. Now, she's recently had a bit of a comeback, and she started releasing new material again, but this is back in her original heyday. She'd left the Go-Go's, and back in 1989 she brought out Runaway Horses, the album, and this is a truly superb late 80s pop album. We got Leave a Light On, Runaway Horses, La Luna, We Want the Same Thing, Deep Deep Ocean, Valentine, Shades of Michelangelo. This album is cram-packed with 24-karat gold pop tracks, and I cannot recommend it more highly. Of course, we've got the obligatory 80s, sort of slightly sexy, seductive artist shot on the front, with the top slightly pulled down. That's a little bit sort of passé and old now, but it was probably the in thing back then. And now my final album for the 6 from this particular selection is Tori Amos. Now this is another artist, a bit like Kate Bush, that I've been very, very much a fan of for a long, long time. Not so much now, I have to say. I've let my my Tori Amos fandom slip a little bit in recent years. But this was back in the late 80s. This was her release from the Choirgirl Hotel. I believe it's the album that comes after Boys for Pele. And it's a single disc album, so no gatefold or anything. We've got the single disc in there, and it's got her trademark sort of weird Kate Bush-esque, I suppose, cover picture. It almost looks like her. Well, I think it's supposed to be in water under ice, but it looks more like she's face down on a sheet of glass, to be honest with you. And then on the back we've just got a back shot of her and the track listing. Inside we've just got the papery sleeve, we've got the weird sort of ethnic girl photos of her, looking an awful lot like, I have to say, some shots from the Boys for Pele photo shoots. And then we've also got a full lyric sheet. Somebody's not really worked out the spacing on their computer, so we've got Left Right Justified on She's Your Cocaine, which makes it almost impossible to read those lyrics the way they're set out. Now, standout tracks for me on this, I have to say, Spark, Cruel, Raspberry Swirl. I really like that, very dancey track. And Hotel. I love the almost operatic singing in that. It's an album which I don't think was massively commercially successful at the time compared with the albums that had gone before it. But certainly out of all of the Tori Amos albums, it's my personal favourite. So, with honour, it gets inducted into my 1000 top vinyl videos. Anyway, that's all I have time for today. Until next time, keep that piece of 12-inch vinyl spinning round with the 18,000th of an inch piece of industrial diamond dragging through the groove. That's right, it's bye from me. Take care.